We looked at so far, do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? That was the first real unit. What is it that, this entrepreneurial zest that people have? In the second unit, we looked at, okay, feasibility kind of idea. We got 1,000 ideas. Let's do a feasibility analysis to kind of cut our ideas down. We'll bring it down to a few potential business ideas that we could potentially take further. In this particular unit, we're looking at, okay, let's take the business idea that we think we can take further and write a business plan for it. And this theme of this unit runs right through the remaining part of the course. So, planning to take advantage of an identified business opportunity is very much a let's start about the early stages of a business plan and the strategy that is required to move a business plan forward. So we're going to assess the importance of strategic planning for small business. We're going to discuss the purpose of the application of a feasibility analysis, taking it from where we left off, the importance of a business plan for small business, the process of developing a business plan, and a list and discuss the components of the business plan. So this is very much focused on, again, that idea of let's launch from feasibility or pre-feasibility to a business plan. Now, starting off though, we need some sort of a strategy, some plan to be able to assess, is this the kind of thing that we are going to do? Do we bring significant strengths to this idea? Do we bring the required skills in order to make the business idea successful? At the start, I want you to think about how can we assess whether or not that you, we, someone else has the skills to make a business succeed. You have an idea, you've done a pre-feasibility on it, and you kind of think, yeah, that could potentially go. Now you're saying to yourself, am I the best match for this? Is this something that is really, really good for me? Okay, so you're kind of laying out a plan and where the business is headed and putting some numbers around it to kind of give a good sense. And we've seen, and you have seen in your other courses, marketing, for example, that one of the tools that we use to do that, probably the most common tool that we use to do that, is something called a SWOT analysis. And a SWOT analysis is a very simple tool that came out of Harvard University many years ago that really is used in order to determine what internal strengths and weaknesses do you have that you can change, you can manage, you can arrange, and what opportunities and threats in the outside world are out there that you can take advantage of the opportunities and steer clear of any threats. So the SWOT analysis is a nice little quick and dirty tool to help you do what needs to be done in order to assess what you got that's good and what opportunities exist out there to take advantage of that what you got that's good. Also, you're assessing what you got that you probably need to improve on in order to be able to take advantage of those, your weaknesses, and what you need to avoid, all the dangers, that proverbial iceberg in front of the Titanic. What is it that you want to avoid? So we use a SWOT analysis tool. The SWOT analysis is an important tool in which to start your business plan, because what you need to be able to do at the very front end is ask, what am I doing here? What do I bring to the game? How can I utilize what I bring to the game in order to take advantage of any identified opportunities? He didn't do that. So if we look at the SWOT analysis, in full, we can say, okay, well, in terms of our strengths, we've got to ask questions of what do we do well? Do we have any unique skills? What expert or specialized knowledge do we have? What experience do we have? What do we do better than our competitors? So what did Dean do better than his competitors? We don't know. What's the most profitable part of your business? You'd look at that and say, well, okay, maybe downhill skiing is not the most feasible. Maybe the cabin lots are the most feasible, And if he had to ask and answer these questions, he's probably going to stop at this because he didn't have enough strengths really in order to carry it forward. The weaknesses. What areas do you need to improve? What resources do you lack? What parts of your business are not profitable? Where do you need further education? What costs you time and money? When we applied this to Dean, we'd ask, well, what areas do you need to improve? Well, he needs that planning down a little bit better. He needs to have a better business skills. He needs to be able to generate some money. What resources do he lack? Well, money was the lack of resources that really did him in. But, in terms of the tangibles, he didn't have a groomer. He didn't have a lot of things that were required in order to make a ski hill happen. What parts of the business are not very profitable? Had he done an assessment, for example, of his major business ideas that he had, be it cabin, snowmobile, whatever, he could figure out one of these is going to be more profitable than the other. Maybe that's the one I should focus on. Where does he need further education or further experience? He needed either to get a partner or to be able to get some education himself in how to run a business. That was something that he said he lacked. What cost you time and money? The fact that he was always trolling for dollars to make payroll or this sort of thing meant that he didn't spend any of his time planning. His whole time was spent keeping his head above water. He wasn't swimming, he was drowning. So that indicated a lot of weaknesses there. In terms of opportunities, we want to ask, what are the business goals? What are you currently working towards? How can you do how can you do more for your existing customers or clients? How can you use technology to enhance your business? Are there new target audiences? Are there related products and services that provide the opportunity? From his point of view, I think he did a good job with this one. He said, what are your business goals? I think his goals were fairly clear for the ski hill. They got a little mushed later on when he started doing other things. How can you do more for your existing customers and clients? Well, he opened up the bar. He had a golden opportunity then to find out, well, what do these people want? Do they want a ski hill or do they want a bar? How can you use technology to enhance your business? A lot of things that he had there probably could have been sped up a bit. Like he had a lot of it on paper, simple spreadsheet. He had a computer technology. He could have been able to use that in order to come up with the numbers and run the numbers much more quickly. Are there new target audiences that you potentially reach? Well, I'm sure there might be. In Stephenville, there might be a lot of potential markets for something. Probably not downhill skiing, but for something. Are there related products and services that provide the opportunity for your business? Yeah, there's a lot of related products and services. He saw the snowmobile dealer is where he got a lot of his money from. So there was a lot of that. But also, from a negative point of view or a threat point of view, are there related businesses that would cause you competition? And the threats would say, that what obstacles, what strengths, biggest competitors, what are your competitors doing that you're not? What's going on in the economy? What's going on in the industry? All he had to do was to answer those questions, and he'd see that, there were a lot of challenges he was going to face. And at that point, had he even contemplated global warming that, we're seeing here? I know I like using this because I got to wrestle with the ski hill here. And I know how much of a struggle it is. And this year in particular, and last year in particular, and the year before that in particular, every year is a struggle. What's going on in the environment? So the SWOT analysis enables you to do that. And if you take any business idea and you apply these simple concepts, you can pretty well tell, having done this, what direction you should go in. And that direction could be a full stop. Okay? So that's an important tool to help you move your idea forward. And the SWOT analysis tool simply takes this type of setup. We create 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1 is strengths, where we list the key advantages relative to the competition target markets. Now, the word relative is important. What are the things that we do better than anyone else who is potentially competing with us or potentially in the same market as us? That's what we call a strength finder. We need to think about what do we got that's better than everyone else that we can use in order to leverage this business idea forward. We also need to think about our weaknesses. What are the key disadvantages relative to the competition that we have? Are we short on a few things? Are there certain things that we need some help on? Can we hire someone to help us fill in these holes? Like if you're really good at marketing, but you're lousy at accounting, you recognize that you're lousy at accounting and hire an accountant, that sort of thing. And then we got the external where we say, okay, look, there's all kinds of opportunities out there that we potentially could capture. Okay, so what marketplace conditions can we take our business and move it forward with? Then finally, we've got these threats, and these threats are everywhere in business. But what possible impediments are out there that could throw our business off or hijack this idea? Now, it's easier to do this when you're looking at someone else. It's always hard to do this when you're doing your own, right? This is my strengths, my weaknesses. These are opportunities I see, and these are the threats I see. So I'm going to ask you to take the point of view of a consultant now, and I want you to do a SWOT analysis. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, here is a blank sheet of paper. Okay, and if you got a pen handy or something handy, that would be great. But here's the blank sheet of paper, and I want you to identify strengths, weaknesses, which are internal, things that can be controlled, opportunities, and threats, which are things that are external that can't be controlled but must be avoided. And I want you to do that. You've just been hired on as a consultant now, and you have a guy in front of you by the name of Dean Simon. And Dean is sat down and says, okay, I need some money from you. I need some support from you. I got big troubles. So let's get Dean to tell us a little bit about his story. And I want you then to assess Dean's strengths, Dean's and Dean's businesses. So I'll lump Dean and Dean's business idea into one. What are the strengths of Dean and his business idea? What are the weaknesses of Dean? What weaknesses do Dean and his business idea have? What opportunities exist? And what threats exist? Okay. So what we're going to do a SWOT analysis on this guy right here.
The mountain didn't come to Dean Simon, he went to it. 6 years ago, this Newfoundlander dreamt of skiers and chalets and a restaurant and money falling from the sky like snow. And he kept trying in the face of so much adversity, we weren't sure whether he was the most determined and persistent entrepreneur ever or a bit crazy. Here's what's happened with Canada's own King of the Hill.
Way back in November of 1997, a band of hardworking Newfoundlanders hurries to Bear Mountain before the big winter snows blow in. They're carving out a set of downhill ski runs.
I wouldn't have the heart to send these guys up here if I didn't do it myself.
The most dedicated member of this happy crew is its captain, Dean Simon.
We don't have much of a budget for gloves.
Just shy of 30 years old, he's the largest shareholder and president of the Pine Tree Recreation Corporation. 1,100 feet high atop Table Mountain in Port-au-Port, Newfoundland, about an hour and a half from Corner Brook.
There's the $1 million view.
Dean's downhill course seems to sweep straight into the blue ocean.
If I had $1 million, if I had $1 million, I'd buy me a ski slope. We're in a little bit of a cash flow crisis here now.
These days, Dean's a bit shy of $1 million.
Last week's payroll is in jeopardy of bouncing. So I got to come up with about $600 by 1 o'clock. So.
Within minutes of our first meeting, we know his journey will be all uphill.
Listen, buddy, I need to ask you another favor.
Always on the lookout for investment money, today he needs an immediate infusion.
And I was wondering if you'd given it any more thought about coming in, maybe even on a single share or an installment down on a share.
So far, Dean's financed Pine Tree by selling shares in the business at $1,000 apiece.
Nope. He said his wife just had a baby and he's not in a position to do it right now, so get back to him later. I get a lot of get back to me laters.
He's raised close to $90,000 that way, mostly from people in the area. Over the past year, that's been enough to build a 500-meter road, level a site for a chalet, and chop out those ski runs.
Looks like they're coming down there now.
Dean's a local, and he's sure the outlying population of about 35,000 would go for a ski hill. But that's just phase one of his Pine Tree dream.
Home sweet home.
His long-term vision is to turn some 450 acres into a year-round recreation complex. Coming soon, he hopes, basketball courts, snowmobile trails, driving ranges.
Okay, who's going to help me today? The last resort is to go up to the pawn shop and part with my beloved X-ring.
Dean's beloved ring is from St. Francis Xavier University. He's a science grad, no formal business background, and to say Pine Tree, his ring has been in hawk before. No luck at the pawn shop, so Dean resorts to the door-to-door method of raising capital, trolling for dollars from the supportive citizens of Stephenville.
There's half of it. Adventures in poverty, we should call this.
Dean's persistent, and the money trickles in. The local skidoo dealer gives him a down payment on a share.
One down payment, sir.
Then he sells a ski pass for the coming season down the street, and he's out of the woods.
That's it. My job's complete.
But it's such a good feeling to wake up the next day with money in the bank. Dean's been living in a trailer, which doubles as an office, on site for the last year.
Business.
Surviving on the kindness of friends and family.
For today's entree, we'll be having moose. It's my favorite. The last 4 days have been the most hectic of my life, and it's not getting any easier today.
Dean's looking for about $120,000 in government loans.
I think the project is viable because we have a substantial population base here.
But the government reps say Dean's business plan is just not good enough on paper.
They want to get together and have another meeting next week, and I will oblige them on that. I'll try and do a little bit more planning.
It's March 1998. There was no ski season at Pine Tree. They got some towers in, but engineering delays stopped the rest of the lift installation, and that's delayed the government loan applications. And it sounds worse than it is, but his trailer's being repossessed.
I couldn't afford to keep them. We've still got the one trailer here, which will house our office and my own accommodation.
He's salvaged this dismantled building from Transport Canada. It's slated to become the ski chalet.
Hard to believe that only a month ago this was all covered.
Dean's now determined to open in January 1999. March 3rd, 2000 now. Dean's last trailer is rolling down the mountain.
Oh, there she goes.
This time, Dean's happy to see the back end of that baby.
I'm officially no longer trailer trash.
See, he's moving up in the world. Behold, Pine Tree's 6,000 square foot chalet and operations center. Tomorrow, plans were to finally open ski season and combine it with a meeting for investors.
We chose March the 4th, tomorrow. And we run into a lot of snags, and as usual, everything's behind.
The overriding snag? The snow's all gone. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
I was wondering if you had considered maybe purchasing another share.
And if Dean ever gets off that phone and finally skis down his mountain, we'll be back. After all, it's not like we don't know where to find him.
I'm here for good. I'm here to stay.
We can now report, years after commencing construction, finally, there's money coming into Pine Tree. The chalet serves 3 square a day. Customers come to catch the fabulous sunsets. The bar's open. There's fine dining and live entertainment. Determined to bring in revenues for this year, Dean concentrated on completely finishing off the chalet.
The Newfoundland winters are not as long as they're going to be up in the Rockies, so what are you going to do?
Nevertheless, his nemesis, that T-bar lift, has yet to tow a skier skyward. But on the last weekend in March 2001, Dean's dream finally came clanging true. A momentous occasion.
Yeah. This is just amazing. It's like 5.5 years waiting to do this.
Dean, guests, and some investors got the chance to be the first skiers up the lift. Woohoo! Dean's facing still more struggles ahead, like the resort's $15,000 insurance bill and a payroll that's heading towards $5,000 a week. It's December 2003, and we're back.
How does that look?
Uh-oh.
This is our main slopes.
Dean Simon still dreaming big.
This is going to be our maintenance area. This is our beginner slope. What's going to be an outdoor covered stage.
Dean is also still dialing for dollars. Today, it's for the hydro and phone bills.
Both of those are due for disconnection today. The good thing is that I have been in contact with some shareholders in the last couple of days, and there should be some money in the account. There we go. One guy has come through.
A loan for $5,000 pays the bills, and
I just got my ring back. It's been about 6 weeks since I had it.
well, wait a minute. Remember March 2001 and the money coming in? When you get back on your feet. After 6 months of breaking even, Dean closed the lounge to get the ski hill going. However,
Came up short. Couldn't raise the money for insurance.
still no insurance money. But what's this?
160 acres of land just right next to us came up for sale. So I really didn't want to see anybody coming in.
So Dean's got himself more partners and another enterprise.
The plan is to subdivide the property and sell 1 acre lots, starting at about $20,000 per lot.
Will there be any skiing this winter?
The insurance is still an issue, but physically and functionally, we need to get a snow groomer.
Okay, now it's a groomer.
I mean, every other ski hill in the world has a groomer.
It's a week later, and we're in Gander, looking at a groomer. The community ski hill here is bankrupt and tendering its equipment. Bids are sealed. Offers must include 10% down. Dean's managed to raise $200 for a $2,000 bid on rental skis and snowboards, $600 for a $6,000 bid on 3 ski lifts, and $750 for a $7,500 bid on that groomer. But if his bids win, Dean will need to raise another $14,000.
You need to pay it off within 30 days or you lose your deposit. It's not over yet. Groomer,
The envelopes get opened at 2 o'clock.
ski lifts, and snowboards and rental skis.
Okay.
Two competitors for the groomer and none for the rentals or the ski lifts.
Dean's the only one bidding on ski lifts and rentals, but the council can still say no if a bid is too low.
For the ski lifts, Pine Tree Recreation,
Only bidder.
and the tendered amount is $6,000.
That's for one lift favor from all.
It's for all.
For 3.
All 3.
I think I should have been higher by his comment.
Now, the groomer envelopes, please.
This is the one I should have been higher.
There's a bid from the town of Grand Falls, Windsor.
We have it's security $4,000, and the total tendered amount is $10,005.
Give me that number again.
It's $2,500 higher than Dean's.
No groomer. No groomer.
Well, as it turns out, the council rejected everybody's bids on everything, saying all the offers were too low. But Dean always has a plan B and a plan C. Maybe run insurance-free snowmobile trails, open the lounge again, or sell more shares. And oh, by the way,
No, it's not
quite true that all I ever eat is moose. Because every now and then, you get a rabbit from out on the hill. Doesn't that look totally tasty?
It does illustrate the point that had he built a business plan before he got into actual construction, he started constructing and then he started building a business plan. Everything was in his head. Had he had done a business plan beforehand, someone might have said to him at that point, Dean, this is not feasible. And that money would not have been wasted. His energy wouldn't have been wasted. We wouldn't have a Deer Lake ski hill over there at this point in time. And that, he could have put his efforts and energy into something a little more fruitful. And that's the idea of really doing a business plan, is to be able that you can actually do some pre-planning before you ever spend any money. So the feasibility analysis is really, really important before you go down the road of a full-fledged business plan. So you want to start a business, you really need to think about, hold on, let's see if we can make any money with this idea. So there's a lot in common with the business plan. In fact, feasibility analysis is a good start for a business plan. So what you're doing here is really using it more as a screening tool. Once you complete it, assuming it's positive, you can then move on to a business plan. The business plan also contains aspects which are not included in the feasibility study. At this stage in the course, then it's important to clarify the differences between the two. The feasibility study is conducted during the deliberation phase of the project development cycle prior to obtaining project financing. It's an analytical tool that includes different scenarios for decision makers, and you can utilize that in order to determine whether you want to move forward or not. So the business feasibility study is simply a tool that is used to determine, do this business idea make any economic sense? Okay, it should provide a thorough analysis of the business opportunities, including looking at many obstacles as possible that could stand in the way of business success. So the SWOT analysis helps fill that part up. Considering that a very small percentage of new businesses proved to be viable, 1% to 2%, and considering that the business planning is very labor intensive, it takes a long time to do it, quickly becomes clear that a business feasibility study can be very useful at pre-business planning. If the results of the feasibility study show the project looks feasible, then you can move on to a full-scale business plan. So the typical feasibility study, which is really, I'll call it part one of the business plan, has three basic parts. Part one, market feasibility. Part two, site technical feasibility. And part three, financial feasibility. So we're looking at the external market. This is really focusing on the opportunities and threats. The site technical issues, which are internal to the business. What do we need in terms of the site, the technical requirements in order to make this successful? And finally, the dollars and cents. Can we make enough money on this to pay? And will it be a feasible venture in terms of making enough to keep you in the business? So let's take a look at this. So the market feasibility. If we look at market feasibility, we need to ask some key questions in this, okay? We're trying to get an idea, is this sensible? So we look at what is the nature and type of industry? What are the key features of the industry? What are the possible target markets for the industry? Is this a new or mature industry? What are the basic demographic characteristics of the target markets? How large are the target markets? What are these target markets? Where are they located? Which markets are expected to grow? Who are the key competitors? Had Dean applied this simple concept here and asked these simple questions, he would know right off the bat that probably this is not a good idea. We look at other questions like, how large are these competitors? How do the competitors price their products? What are the competitors' strengths and weaknesses? How difficult is the market to enter? And we saw, for example, that the entry cost into a ski hill business is quite high. You got to buy a lift, and didn't show him buying the lift. That was another story altogether. But the lift it cost him about $80,000. He had to get it installed, of which most of his time was spent flying helicopters with cement. How does it differ from his competitors? How does it differ from Marble Mountain or Ski White Hills? How does it differ? How can differences be capitalized on in order to gain market share? What's he doing different than Marble or different than the other ski hills? And what is the target market share for the proposed business? Where is the opportunity? So these basic questions about the market are very important to ask of any business idea. And again, there's only 20 questions there. It's a good first cut that can be done in an hour. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this sort of thing, right? The second part of it looks at the site and technical issues. So, and really you might even stop dead in the first part, because if you get too many negative answers in that part one, you're not going to move to part two. So the screening becomes pre-screening becomes a bit of a screening tool in and of itself. In terms of the site and technical issues, we're going to assess the financial feasibility of a given product idea. So we need to think about, what is the physical plant looking like? Where is it going to be located? How much revenue will it generate? How much will it cost to put in place? Is it important to know what your project site will look like and how it will be set up? This even applies to home-based businesses, So we think of that ski hill over there, and you ask yourself, well, where was the physical location? The physical location was on a hill where all ski hills are. It was good, it was relatively close to Stephenville. Great. What would it look like? And again, he had some ideas because he had runs cut out in that way. Where will it be located? How much money will it generate? How much money does it need to generate? What kind of basic costs do you have, and what kind of basic revenues would you need in order to support those costs? Construction costs were difficult to estimate. In the case of Dean, for example, he bought the lift for about $70,000. He had it come in, and he thought he'd get it erected. And he was going to do it during the summer, but delays. And he ended up putting up the lift in the fall. And in order to get it done fast enough, he had to go hire a helicopter at $1,800 an hour to fly in cement. So that drove his construction costs up quite a bit. So it's difficult to pinpoint construction costs, but had he had a clearer design and a clearer plan, at least he could have anticipated the timeline of when he'd need to pour cement and what he'd need in order to do that. So there's lots and lots of challenges with getting the idea of construction costs, but he didn't appear to do anything with regards to that. And this site and technical issues is really going to help focus you in on saying, how much is it going to cost in order to get this up and running? So we got to ask these basic questions. Should the site be leased or purchased? What's the criteria for the plant office location? Is there an adequate site access? Is this the best location for its physical plant? What's the cost of the site? What's the cost of the improvements? In terms of technical issues, plant and equipment, what do you need? What type of equipment needs to be acquired? How much does it cost? Where are you going to get it to? How long is it going to take to get delivered? How long is it going to take to get set up? What's the quantity requirements? Who are the potential suppliers? How much raw material will you need? What's the availability of the supply? What qualifications are required in order to run this type of thing? Are there people available in the area who can actually do it? And again, Stephenville might be the trick. Can the business attract the required talent? It's a problem in Clanville. Getting the right people to run that hill is very, very hard. How much will it cost to attract and retain qualified staff? What's your salary expense going to be? Probably it is the highest expense of the hill here, the salaries, and electricity is right behind it. And then we look at financial feasibility. This third stage, and again, if we can't make it past the second stage, we're not going to go to the third stage. So the third stage is financial feasibility. And what we're looking at there is, can we make money out of this? So we need to be able to estimate our revenue and estimate our expenses. So in terms of revenue, we got to take information from all the sources we can get, secondary, primary data, whatever, to be able to think about what is the revenue. And normally what we do with this is we have a worst case scenario, most likely scenario, and least case scenario for revenue. And we can assess, okay, here are potential revenues to streams that would come in. Now, in this case with ski hill, it's very easy because your revenues are probably only going to come in January, February, March, and April. The rest of the year, you're not skiing. Other businesses might be year-round. That would have an impact on being able to figure that out. In terms of cost estimation, you kind of take your plans that you did in parts 1 and 2 and help kind of generate that. So a preliminary cost estimate would develop in all the other sections, and we're going to put them into this. We're going to think about our construction costs, furnishing costs, startup inventory, if we got inventory for a retail type business, operating capital, how much money you need in order to keep her going until you start making some money, and soft costs such as legal, marketing, etc. We got to ask some key questions here. What are the pricing structures of the business? What's the projected sales at those pricing structures? What's their total revenue projection? So multiply our price times quantity. Total startup costs. We need to know that. Projected daily, monthly, annual operating costs. Break-even point. What is it for the business? How much do we need to sell in order to stop losing money? And then you got to be able to do some detailed cash flow projections, and we'll look at that a little later on. But you've also looked at it. All you guys are doing accounting, so you know about cash flow projections, right? How they're useful to be able to determine when you're going to have money coming in and when you're going to need to borrow. And when will the business be profitable? That's going to be a make or breaker. If you can't make a profit within 3 years, you're probably going to run out of money and run out of energy before you ever make profit, and your business is not going to survive. So you need to be able to make profit within a reasonable length of time. If you can answer those questions and still say, yeah, this is a good idea, then you should go on to the business plan. If you can't answer those questions in a positive manner, you're probably going to have to go find another idea. Dean really needed to go and find another idea. Had he had done this first, this is a 3-day operation answering these questions, provided you can get the data. And I assume he had a good bit of the data. He could have told within 3 days of working at this that probably this is not the best option to go. He didn't. And as a result, we saw what we saw.